pretty well like separated, but I just need to kind of put them together.
One moment she was fighting for every point. The next she was on the ground, motionless. Under the scorching Wuhan sun, Emma Raducanu, Britain's once-in-a-generation tennis prodigy, collapsed before thousands of stunned spectators and millions watching online. The match was supposed to be another chapter in her comeback, proof that after surgeries, doubts, and endless criticism, she was ready to rise again. Instead, it became one of the most haunting images in modern tennis. From the very first rally, the air on court had felt heavy, almost unbreathable. Temperatures soared past 34 degrees, the kind of heat that turns a hard court into a frying pan. Sweat rolled off her arms like rain. She wiped her face after every rally, forcing herself to focus, to breathe, to fight. But even through the TV cameras, viewers could sense something was wrong. Her movement slowed. Her shoulders sagged. Her eyes began to drift unfocused between points. Commentators hesitated mid-sentence, voices trembling as they described what looked like a battle against something invisible. Not her opponent, but her own body. "She's struggling to stand," one whispered. "Someone needs to check on her." Then came the moment. As she prepared to serve, Emma's legs gave way. Her hand clutched at the air. She stumbled backward, knees buckling, before collapsing fully onto the court. The sound that followed was silence. A silence louder than any cheer. Even her opponent froze mid-stride. Cameras zoomed in as medical staff sprinted onto the court. Emma lay on her back, her chest rising and falling in shallow, uneven breaths. Her coach, normally a pillar of composure, stood up from his seat, hands over his mouth. Online, the world reacted instantly. Hashtags like Pray for Emma and Nabar Wuhan Heat flooded X and Instagram. Fans demanded answers. How could this happen? Why didn't the officials stop the match? Others defended her, calling her a warrior for refusing to quit despite the suffocating heat. Within minutes, images of her collapse were everywhere. On sports pages, news feeds, headlines that read, "Emma Raducanu collapses in Wuhan. Chaos and concern in the tennis world." But beyond the digital noise, there was something deeply human in that moment. The fragility behind the fame, the price of ambition paid in sweat and pain. For Emma, who had spent months rebuilding herself piece by piece, this was not just exhaustion. It was her body screaming for mercy. And yet, as paramedics carried her off the court, she lifted one trembling hand to wave to the crowd, a small, fragile gesture that silenced even her harshest critics. It wasn't victory. It was defiance. She didn't win that match, but she won something far rarer. Empathy. As the crowd watched her disappear down the tunnel, one question lingered in every mind. How did the golden girl of British tennis, the champion who once stunned the world, end up broken beneath the Wuhan sun? To understand what happened in Wuhan, you have to go back to the night that changed everything. September 11th, 2021. An 18-year-old girl from Bromley, wearing a simple red and blue outfit, stood beneath the floodlights of New York's Arthur Ashe Stadium. Against all odds, she had just become the first qualifier in history to win the U.S. Open. No sponsors, no expectations, no fear. Just pure, fearless tennis. The crowd roared. Britain had a new heroine, Emma Raducanu, the girl who conquered the world with a smile and a forehand that glowed with destiny. But the fairy tale burned too bright. In the months that followed, the applause faded, replaced by questions, criticism, and the relentless weight of fame. Every swing of her racket was dissected. Every loss became a headline. Was she a one-hit wonder? They asked. Too much too soon? Whispered others. And somewhere between the interviews, the flights, and the pressure to repeat the impossible, her body began to crumble. It started small, pain in her wrist, stiffness in her ankle, but like most athletes chasing perfection, she ignored it, until she couldn't. By early 2023, the girl who once lifted a Grand Slam trophy could barely lift her racket without pain. 3 surgeries later, both wrists and one ankle, she was grounded, not on a plane to another tournament, but in a hospital bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if the world had already moved on. In those quiet months, her name faded from headlines. Other stars rose. Other champions took her place. But behind closed doors, Emma was rebuilding, slowly, painfully, quietly. Physiotherapy sessions at dawn, strength training when the scars were still fresh, hours spent watching matches she couldn't play. Friends said she became more withdrawn, more reflective, less of the smiling teenager, more of a woman learning what pain truly means. She once told a reporter, "Everyone talks about my win, but no one talks about the months after. The loneliness, the doubts, the silence." Those words said everything. When she finally returned to set court months later, it wasn't just a comeback, it was a test of faith in her body, her mind, and her identity. In Wuhan, she walked onto that court not as the girl who shocked the world, but as someone trying to prove to herself that she still belonged. Her forehand was sharper, her eyes calmer, and for a few matches it looked like the old magic was back. But deep down, the scars were still there, invisible, buried under determination. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Because when she lifted that racket under the blazing Chinese sun, she wasn't just fighting her opponent, she was fighting every ghost that had haunted her since New York. And this time, the battle wasn't for a trophy, it was for survival. Back in Wuhan, the air shimmered like glass. The humidity wrapped around the court like a living thing, suffocating every breath. You could almost see the heat rising off the surface, blurring the white lines beneath her shoes. From the stands, it looked like just another match. 2 athletes trading ground strokes. But beneath that calm rhythm, a storm was building inside Emma Raducanu's body. Every rally was a war. Her face flushed crimson. Her hand trembled between serves. She took deep, shaky breaths, whispering something to herself. Maybe a mantra, maybe a plea. The commentators began to fall silent, their cheerful tone replaced by uneasy pauses. "She doesn't look right," one of them murmured. "This isn't just fatigue." By mid-second set, Emma's footwork had slowed to a crawl. Her timing wavered, but she refused to stop. Point after point, she chased every ball with the same fire that once lit up New York. The audience applauded her bravery, unaware that each step pushed her closer to collapse. And then, it happened. Her racket slipped from her hand. She took one step back, eyes unfocused, before her knees gave way completely. She fell to the ground, one arm reaching out instinctively before her body crumpled onto the scorching surface. The crowd gasped, a collective sound of horror that echoed through the stadium. For a few seconds she didn't move. The umpire leapt down. Medical staff rushed in. Her opponent, stunned, walked toward the net but stopped, unsure what to do. Cameras zoomed in as a medic placed a cold towel on her forehead. Another checked her pulse. Her chest rose weakly. The world held its breath. And then came the outrage. Social media lit up like a wildfire. Within minutes, hashtags like "Energy pray for Emma" and "Energy protect the players" were trending. "This is inhumane," one tweet said. "How can they play in these conditions?" Another demanded. Former champions spoke out. Billie Jean King wrote, "No victory is worth risking an athlete's health." Andy Murray reposted the footage with the caption, "The Heat rules need reform. Now." Meanwhile, tournament officials scrambled to defend themselves. They insisted the conditions were within safety limits. But fans weren't buying it. Meteorologists had warned earlier that humidity levels made it feel closer to 40 degrees Celsius. Player representatives had reportedly asked for a delay. Requests ignored. Even as Emma was carried off the court, her hand limp but raised faintly in acknowledgement, the debate grew louder. Was it bravery or negligence? Determination or desperation? That night, footage of her collapse played across every news channel. The girl who once symbolized youthful triumph was now a symbol of something darker, the human cost of pushing beyond endurance. And yet, amid the anger, there was something else, a strange kind of admiration. One fan wrote, "She didn't quit. Her body quit for her. That's the heart of a champion." It wasn't the match she came to win, but somehow by falling, she reminded the world what real strength looks like. Not perfection, but persistence. Because even broken, she never stopped fighting. When night finally settled over Wuhan, the stadium lights dimmed, and the chaos gave way to silence. Somewhere in a quiet hotel room, Emma Raducanu opened her phone for the first time since the collapse. Her face was pale, her body still weak, but her fingers moved slowly across the screen. She typed a short message. Raw, simple, honest. "I push my body to its limit today, but sometimes it pushes back. I'm feeling much better now. Thank you for all the love and support. Health comes first. Always." Within minutes, her post exploded. Over 1 million likes. Tens of thousands of comments. Some were from fans who had followed her since that magical night in New York. Others were from strangers touched by the sight of a young woman who refused to hide her vulnerability. For once, the internet wasn't cruel. It was kind. Meanwhile, the debate over her collapse spread far beyond sports. Medical experts weighed in, explaining how heat exhaustion can strike even elite athletes when hydration and humidity collide. Her body simply shut down, one doctor said. It's not weakness. It's biology. But there was anger, too. Critics demanded accountability from the WTA. You can't talk about athlete welfare and then schedule matches in conditions like that, wrote one journalist. Under growing pressure, the WTA released a statement promising a comprehensive review of heat protocols for tournaments across Asia. Yet to many fans, it felt like damage control, a reaction that came too late. And while the world argued, Emma rested. Away from cameras, she focused on breathing again, walking again, rebuilding again. Those who saw her behind the scenes said she was calm, almost philosophical. "I learned a lot from this," she told her team quietly. "I learned that strength isn't about fighting until you fall. It's knowing when to stop before you break." It was a different kind of wisdom, and the kind born from pain, not victory. Weeks later, when she appeared again in training clips, the smile was back, smaller but steadier. The fire hadn't gone out. If anything, it burned more quietly, more maturely. The girl who once chased trophies was now chasing balance. And perhaps that's what makes her story so powerful. She fell, yes, but she fell with grace. She collapsed, but not in defeat, because true greatness isn't measured in medals or headlines. It's measured in how you stand up when the world expects you to stay down. As fans, maybe that's what we should remember. Not the image of her lying on the court, but the courage it took to come back again, to face the same sun that burned her and still dare to play. So here's the question. For all of us watching from the safety of our screens, what defines greatness? The wins we celebrate, or the pain we survive? If you believe that resilience matters more than perfection, that strength is born from struggle, like, share, and leave a comment below. Tell us what you saw in Emma's story, because maybe, just maybe, her fall in Wuhan wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something far more human and far more heroic.